Welcome in to Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Well, we say it every year, but the NFL does a magical job of nearly weekly and now daily tantalizing its fan base with intrigue. Just weeks removed from the Super Bowl, we are knee-deep in draft preparations, and, oh yeah, here comes the legal tampering period next Monday and the start of the new league year next Wednesday. Trades, cuts, tags are dominating the rumor mill in the NFL, making headlines. We discussed tonight on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Chicago Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer and former Bears quarterback Jim Miller. I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks to Dan Barilli, Jordan Tredup, and Katie Fox, our producer tonight, Kendra Smith, and the executive producer of the Bears Radio Network, Eric Ostrowski. Coming up in the program, a two-part conversation with Bears general manager Ryan Poles. Jim, Tom, good to talk to you. We start with the news of the day, the reported deal of DJ Moore from the Bears to the Buffalo Bills for a second-round pick.
You know, back to one thing that you said you opened up with, legal tampering. I want one of those two words dropped. I either want it to be legally or tampering. I don't want it to be legal tampering. It doesn't sound correct. And so that's just my immediate vent of the day. We heard the news that's been delivered about DJ Moore, and you know, you kind of look at it two ways. The business of football is never easy. All of us have changed teams. And it's fortunate and unfortunate. It's, DJ Moore has always be thought of fondly here in Chicago. He was a model citizen in the locker room. He was a great leader. I think he kind of inspired probably a lot of guys at his position and other positions. He was the evidence of toughness. So wherever DJ plays and whatever talents he's given his team, he's going to be a quality person.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the names that have gone down. David Montgomery, obviously, to the supposedly what's being reported to the Texans. McDuffie to the Rams. And I think we all know this time of year it's about cap space. Teams got to clear. They've got to get under that cap space, and I think it's all prepared. I think even for the Bears, I think they were prepared for this potential move of DJ Moore. He's $28 million against the cap. You just recently drafted Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Loveland has been just a terrific tight end. So I think the Bears have prepared for this, and the contract's right for DJ Moore to move on. And now the Bills take on that $28 million in their salary cap. So I just think this time of year, these moves have been planned and pretty much talked about for quite some time.
Everything you say about DJ, from the toughness, reliability, always available, practiced almost every day, wound up with 244 receptions, 3,000-plus receiving yards, 20 touchdowns with the Bears, and a 103.4 passer rating when targeted. So that was through several different quarterbacks, of course, Justin Fields among them, and Caleb Williams here the last 2 years. He led with a quiet presence in there, and he spoke volumes about his toughness and reliability on the field. And like you said, Tom, his memory will be solid in Bears history, and the best catch in Bears history to beat the Green Bay Packers on that walk-off win. So that will always be etched in Bears history.
And this is a restaurant that Joe Brady has already shopped at.
Yeah.
The new head coach of the Buffalo Bills. He knows what he's going into and what he's getting. They have an experience from the Carolina Panthers days. So you kind of know what you're getting. You know the caliber of person that's coming into your locker room. You know what you already have at quarterback there in Buffalo. And they've been talking since the season ended about trying to give some relief to Allen, what he's facing at the quarterback position. They're opening up a new stadium. So there's a lot of things that DJ is walking into, from head coach to a quality quarterback, and just being the really good football player that he's been since we've known DJ, whether it's been with the Bears or the other teams he's played for.
When they trade for DJ Moore, that was kind of the trend in the NFL. Remember, the Bills traded for Stephon Diggs, right, to bring along a young Josh Allen. Philadelphia traded for A.J. Brown to bring along a young Jalen Hurts, and I think that's why the Bears traded for a veteran in DJ Moore to help the development of Caleb Williams. And now, like Tom really laid out there, Buffalo has a different agenda. Now, they don't need a young receiver. They need a known commodity because they need more production at wide receiver, and Joe Brady knows him well.
He was the Bears' Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year nominee, and that trade was one of the most significant in franchise history, as it turns out, and depending on what happens in the future, may be one of the biggest trades ever. You wind up getting Caleb Williams, Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, Luther Burden, Torrey Taylor with one trade for DJ Moore that ultimately became the number one pick in the draft for Caleb Williams. So a lot of ties to that. Now, the other big news was the retirement of 27-year-old Drew Dalman. We'll touch on that with the interview with Ryan Poles here coming up shortly. But certainly we're all surprised. And maybe, fellas, in the near future, and I think, Tom, you've kind of made me think this way, in the near future, because of the caliber of salaries that are being earned and NIL money already being earned when they're in college, that maybe this is not going to be a surprise in the future that a 5-year player decides to say, hey, enough's enough. We don't know all the reasons. That'll be up to Drew to reveal, but maybe this is the sign of the future. But how does this impact the Bears, in your opinion, fellas?
I think it is significant because Drew Dalman really fit in well with Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson. He also developed a good communication relationship with Caleb Williams, and that's a really important role by the center. And then they were able to formulate the continuity on the offensive line that we've been talking about for years. Drew Dalman, he was another really great guy inside the locker room. He wasn't a look-at-me type of guy. He was a go out there and practice and play every single day. You give it everything you have. The relationship that he kind of forged with the rest of his offensive lineman, Dan Rochar, the offensive line coach, and his staff. Ryan did an outstanding job of identifying a true pro that was going to come in here and help Ben Johnson in his first year develop the entire offensive line, not just the center position.
Yeah, it certainly hurts. I'm sure that it shocked the Bears. I'm sure it shocked Ryan Poles because you don't expect that after year one when you sign him to a long-term contract. And all the things Tom said are true. I mean, there's guys out there in free agency. You got Connor McGovern. You've got Linderbaum, whether he can get a deal done with his respective team. But you'd like to think a veteran because the Bears really turned around their offensive line in 1 year. And you'd like that type of consistency when you're a top 10 rushing team, what they finish passing, and it all, to me, stem from the positive play of the offensive line. So I think there are veterans out there, or do you trust Caleb now with a young rookie center if you're not able to target or land one of those veteran centers that don't fit what you do? Already one's off the board. Juice Scruggs got traded in that trade with the Detroit Lions. He's a center. So he's off the board. So it could be limited in free agency, or now you got to turn to the draft, or potentially you could be overpaying to bring another center in. So it definitely is a hiccup. There's no question about that.
All right, when we come back, part one of our sit-down with Bears general manager Ryan Poles, just a broad view of what a free agent period, the trading that he may have, and also a look towards the draft. We'll break it up in two parts, but Ryan, coming up next here on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network. This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy. With Tom Thayer and Jim Miller, I'm Jeff Joniak. Had a chance to visit with Bears general manager Ryan Poles as we near the free agent period next week. Trades are being made, but they won't become official until the new league year next Wednesday, I believe, at 3 p.m. Central Time. So specifics are not going to be a part of this conversation. General conversation is. Here's part one with Ryan. All right, thanks for the time, Ryan. I know this is quite busy for you, so essentially we're on the doorstep of the business season popping. So I know the adrenaline rush has got to be real for somebody like yourself.
Yeah, this is the exciting part of time. We love, kind of strategizing to see how this is all going to play out and put our plans together. When it comes to free agency, you got to have plan A, B, C, D, and be able to adapt and adjust as you go. Because you obviously don't control everything, and you're hoping to find a match through free agency and a good fit with some of these players. So we'll be looking to guys outside of our team to help enhance our football team, but we'll also be looking at some of our free agents and trying to get them done as well.
Phone still ringing?
Yeah, phone's always ringing. This year more than ever before. People interested in our talent. So we got to be smart with that and make sure that we're making good decisions. With that whole process, you're thinking about short-term and long-term and how it affects our team. And it's always a difficult time when you're going to potentially move on from a player and trade them. There's relationships there, and especially with the success that we had last year, big moments that all these guys were a part of that we'll always be grateful for. It makes it difficult to make some of these decisions. But, again, part of my job, and maybe the most important part of my job, is making sure that we stay in a good spot as we build this roster for a long term as well.
That is the piece that I think a part of the bigger picture puzzle that people don't understand, because fans are only worried about next year, what we're going to do next year to win a Super Bowl. Okay. But while that is true, you always have to have an eye on the future, and it never became more apparent than when you draft Caleb Williams, number 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Even you go back to that first time with the first pick and you move back, and a little delayed gratification there, thinking like, let's put ourselves in a better position as a roster and take another shot at this. Obviously, that first pick came right back to us, and now our long-term looks pretty good. We're heading in the right direction, we can say that. So, yeah, it's always difficult to pair short and long-term thinking together, but that's part of the challenge of the job and the strategy, and it's what makes this game so fun.
The process that occurs leading up to the new league year, is there anything unique or different from your perspective now that Ben Johnson is here?
I would say just going into the second year with Ben, and really the entire staff, not just Ben, the entire staff, you just get more and more clarity of what they're looking for, the style they want to play, the scheme that we're going to play, the personalities they love to coach. So we've gathered more information this year than what we had last year, which makes it a lot easier when you have clarity. And these coaches do a great job evaluating. I think they have more time to evaluate this year than last year, since they were all kind of unpacking their boxes around this time. So they've been in the seat for a while. They know what they want. They're all together with it, and they're really good evaluators. They're willing to do the work. That's not the case for everybody. So that clarity helps us as we're making decisions. It clears the board up and gives us some guidance as we move forward. But love sitting down. We spent a lot of time with Ben over the last few days, just going through different options, prioritizing certain positions and players. Again, just how intelligent he is, and how well he sees the big picture. That's really comforting for a front office.
To me, there's many gears, and I talked about this with all the interviews I did with people at the Combine, is that, and you and I have talked about this ad nauseum. You want to close your eyes and know what a Bear looks like, just like the Ravens, all the great teams over the years. And I believe, and I'm going to let you amplify it, but I believe we're getting much closer to that, maybe really on it already, about what a Bear is going to look like. But then the gears are how Ben, what he wants in the traits and skill sets beyond what a Bear looks like from a culture point of view, a personality point of view, a love of the game point of view. And then you got to throw in Dennis Allen as well, because he has a particular style of defense he wants to play, and he needs different pieces to that puzzle. So all these gears, isn't that kind of cool right now? You're at the moment where we're ready to take off, and all these gears are starting to really come together.
Yeah, you can feel it come together. And again, at this time of year, we have the ability to enhance that process, to really create this momentum that's coming along. And that's where we have great alignment with our coaching staff, is knowing exactly what a Bear looks like in terms of the football character, the personal character, how they approach the game, and then those specific skill sets for each position. And the more that we can fill those positions with those types of player, the better off we'll be. And we always talk about starters. That kind of is where our attention goes, but we've learned, and I've learned ever since I've been in the league, is you need everybody. So not only acquiring just the starting players, but also those depth level pieces that are going to come in and help us win games too.
This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network with Bears General Manager Ryan Poles, Jeff Joniak. If you were handicapping this free agent period, how might you describe what this might look like for the Bears and then the rest of the league? Is it anything unique about this free agent period coming up?
No, I feel like every free agent class is unique to its own year. There's strengths and weaknesses. There's positions that are thin and positions that are a little bit heavier. So everyone's unique this year. I think this aligns pretty good with some of the talent that we're looking for to add. And then there's some space where, I know that, the percentages are pretty much saying that we're going to end up going to the draft to fill some of these needs too. So each year is very different, but overlaying that on top of the draft and understand what that looks like is important. And maybe there's years where, you have to be a little patient and smart with your approach, because maybe the draft and free agency doesn't fulfill some of the needs that you need, and you're going to supplement that in different ways. So that's all a part of the strategy, and it's very complex and dynamic. And even in the coming days, we'll have some guys that are released from teams that we didn't even expect. So it definitely requires you to stay on your toes and be ready for things to pop up.
I have said this to your face and publicly as well. You're the coolest cucumber in the garden, right? You never know really what's going on, beneath the surface, or as Tom Thayer likes to say, an iceberg, 75% of it is underwater. So, when you are ready to make a big deal or you're ready to make a big signing, what is your heartbeat like? What's your pulse? I mean, is there stuff going on in that belly of yours? Are the butterflies popping, or when you're convicted, you pull the trigger?
Yeah, and listen, I got to give our coaching staff and our front office, our analytics group, Matt Feinstein that helps manage the cap for us. I give the team around me a lot of credit, because our preparation leading to all these events, I believe, is so good that allows you to keep a low pulse when action's starting to happen, because you're prepared. Even the surprises, you can adapt and adjust to them because you've kind of worked through some of those simulations, both in draft and free agency. So our preparation allows me as kind of the leader just to stay calm and collected through that process and have a level head, because you never want to get too far up and down and make a decision that's gonna hurt you. So our whole group is like very calm, which I love. So I think it helps us make good decisions.
As you look at the salary, Kevin, I think that's the general conversation here. It's not just about 2026 salary cap. It's also about the future and balancing that as you try and stay flexible to do things that you're going to be able to do in years to come with a quarterback like Caleb.
But, one thing you think about a year removed, the responsibility that Ryan Poles has putting together a football team, putting together his own scouting staff, developing that relationship with the coaching staff, and seeing how all those pieces fit into place. There are so many job requirements, but how much more comfortable he's got to feel after being in these relationships for a year, knowing a little bit more what the coaching staff wants. And then he gives this coaching staff so much credit for how intelligent of football people they are. So there's a lot of, helping hands here that are after one singular job. So I'm happy Ryan has got a group together that they're all pointed in the same direction.
They know what the problem areas are. And I think what Tom alluded to is now you're talking with the coaches. You're still probably getting to know what Ben Johnson, the type of player he wants. I know they broached that last year, but they want to, obviously increase that to get the talent level even better. And I think all those areas are pretty much highlighted. I think we know they got to upgrade on defense, and there are certain target areas on offense like left tackle, now probably center, maybe wide receiver that need to be addressed. And I think they know all those problem areas. And like you alluded to, Jeff, it's the right guys. You got to target the right guys, whether through the draft or free agency, for your team at the right price.
All right, one more segment with Ryan Poles coming up next here on ESPN 1000 on the Bears Radio Network.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
Traveling to an away game to watch the Bears win big? Get ready to celebrate. Celebrated a little too much? Time to sleep in. Slept in and gonna miss that flight home? Time to change your flight without paying change fees thanks to United. So when will you worry about getting back? Tomorrow? Maybe? United, proud to fly the Chicago Bears. Does not include basic economy unless a United waiver applies. Exceptions apply for certain international flights.
It's another exciting game day for Bears fans, and on game days, it's all about more. More action, more noise, and more savings. That's right. Bears fans save up to 25 cents per gallon on game days with the Fuel Rewards program from Shell. That means you can keep your tailgates going all season long. So don't drop the ball on saving more at the pump. Download the app, join the Fuel Rewards program, and take your savings all the way to the end zone. Terms and conditions apply. Visit www.fuelrewards.com/bears for full offer details.
In this town, we know toughness. We fight through pain, get knocked down, and get back up. At Athletico, we bring that same heart to recovery. We don't just treat injuries, we see your drive, your purpose. We build recovery plans around your goals. Because you've already done the hard part. Now comes the power, the confidence, the comeback. Move like you mean it. Start today at athletico.com. Official physical therapy partner of the Chicago Bears.
Miller Lite, the legendary light beer. The originator, the inventor. If this beer could talk, it'd tell stories about that one time, that night, that one guy, that one gal. Writing a story 50 years long and 50 million friends wide. Because legendary stories start with a light. Here's to 50 years of Miller Time. Celebrate responsibly. 2025 Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Connie's Pizza has been Chicago's go-to pizza for over 60 years, with pizza options including classic Chicago deep dish, stuffed, thin crust, and our original Connie's Pan Pizza. Located at 2373 South Archer Avenue, you can stop by to dine in before the game and then hop on Connie's free shuttle to Soldier Field. Call 312-CONNIES or visit ConniesPizza.com to place an order. Connie's Pizza is your go-to pizza for Chicago pizza. Call 312-CONNIES and order today.
Go! Bears! Maybe you shouldn't have gone shirtless in this weather.
That's a nice Bears jacket.
Oh, thanks. I bought it with the Chicago Bears PNC Bank Visa debit card, which gives exclusive discounts on Bears merchandise.
You look so soft and warm. Can you get discounts on gloves?
Yeah.
Face covers?
Sure.
Socks?
Yeah. Wait, why would you not wear socks?
Find out more at pnc.com/bearscard. PNC Bank, the official bank of the Chicago Bears. PNC Bank, National Association, member FDIC. Visa is a registered trademark of Visa International Service Association and used under license.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly, a Chicago Bears production on the flagship home of the Bears, ESPN Chicago.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment to start feeling better tomorrow. With Tom Thayer and Jim Miller, Jeff Joniak. Here's part two of our conversation with General Manager Ryan Poles. You've had many surprises, and now this is your fifth year. I don't know if it was on your bingo card that Drew Dalman called to say, listen, man, I'm going to retire at age 27.
Yeah. That's one of those things, there's different events that pop up that you don't expect, and you got to adjust to it. With Drew, that's a very, I think a personal decision that he made. I think that at some point, whenever, he wants to address that, he can. But I know as a staff, coaching staff and front office, our whole organization appreciated what he has done for us and how he played last year. So we wish him well, and, we want him to be at his best too.
In a situation like that, I know some people would say, well, do you try to talk the player out of that? I've always learned that, once a player starts, especially in football, if they're down that road, they're down that road, and that's tough to come back from.
Yeah, this sport is very hard. It's a physical sport. It's a violent sport. You have to have your mind right to play the game at a high level and give it everything that you have. If you don't, it's a good space to get hurt in. So it's one of those things you respect the man and the thought process, and for the football team, we got to keep it moving and find ways to improve.
Do you feel good about what's out there or in here to solidify the position once again?
Yeah, there's a couple options. It's going to be difficult to replace a Drew Dalman for sure, but there's a few options that we're looking at, and again, we'll stay opportunistic to things that pop up as well. We'll look at all the buckets in terms of free agency, draft, trade options, anything like that, just to improve our football team. So it's not an easy task to replace Drew, but there's some options that we think can help us.
By virtue of that, a bit of cap relief, though.
Yeah, yep. A little bit of cap relief, too. to help continue to build our football team. If it's not specifically all in that position, it's other positions. So we'll take that and keep working.
All right. So it was addressed at the Combine regarding draft compensation for Ian Cunningham's departure to become GM of the Atlanta Falcons. You were going to touch base potentially with the league. Has that happened, and is there any clarity?
Yeah. So we've touched base with the league. Now we're just kind of playing the waiting game to see how they think this whole thing should be addressed. No real timetable for it, but I think we made a pretty compelling argument, and we'll see what happens.
With that being said, with Ian's departure, I know you've touched on it, and Jeff King has talked to some reporters, but the impact of that promotion for a guy that has been a heck of a teammate of yours in this process of building the Bears back up to relevancy and a championship contender, I think the world of Jeff. What can you take us behind the curtain of what kind of evaluator and executive he is?
Yeah, Jeff's incredible. It's been really cool to see him, get into that assistant GM seat and mindset and really take off running. He's a huge asset for me just in terms of help planning all the different things that we got going on right now. This is probably the busiest season that we have, where you have this intersection of draft, free agency, and he's been wonderful. His evaluation skills are top notch, but I think his communication skills with the rest of our staff to make sure that the ball continues to move forward in our process, to make sure that we're quality controlled and we're detailed in our movements. And I think that's really important, and I can't wait to see him continue to grow in that role. I think what makes him unique is, it wasn't that long ago he was playing himself, and he's got a really good perspective of the locker room, character, that all plays a part in the dynamics of building a really good culture. So I love having him in that position, and he's been really good for us.
All right, let's look back at the Combine, the post-Combine review, if you may, what you saw that may have surprised you, confirmed what you've already known about some of these guys, because it's a piece. It's not it's a big picture. Trust the tape, TTT, yeah. Trust the tape. But the tape. I mean, the athleticism was mind-blowing. Yeah. The 40 times of some of these guys. Mm-hmm. And then, a lot of guys didn't do stuff. So I think that's being discussed. How you feel about that as an evaluator? Yeah,
so we kind of break it down. I think the most important piece for us is the medical. So we got some good information there. The next piece that we weight heavily is the interviews. And again, it's not everything. We have a lot of character that's been gathered from years and years of information, but sitting down and getting to know the player, understanding what they've been taught, how they learn, getting to know their personalities a little bit is really impactful for us. And again, it doesn't move the needle, any which way to move a guy up and down the board, but just understanding the man is important for us. And then the last piece is the field work. We see the guys move around. Again, we don't want to get too far away from tape, but it did stand out in terms of the testing. The guys that did test, they ran historically fast. They jumped historically high.
Is that shocking? I mean, why this year?
Yeah,
at almost every position group.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see this new wave, and I've seen it a little bit on the ground floor with my own son. It's like these kids are training and doing things that most of us, being 40, like I never went to a facility to lift and train and jump and test at such an early age. So I think we're starting to see this new group of kid that has been very invested in their craft at a very young age, 12, 13, 14 years old. I think we're also seeing the effect of NIL. I think getting paid at a young age puts these guys in a position where they're turning pro a little bit earlier, and their focus is really on their craft rather than doing some of the things that we used to do in college and, running the streets and going to parties and things like that. I think these guys are very focused. I think they train, they work on their craft, they stay in, they eat healthy. They can, think about the quality of food that these kids are eating compared to what, most training tables were, 10 years ago. So I think we're seeing that change. I think we're seeing more pro-ready bodies coming into the NFL.
All right. Lastly, are some draft years more important than others, in your opinion, especially now when the window opens to compete for a title? And is this one of those drafts?
Yeah, I think I'd say this. I think we approach every draft the same in terms of the importance, because even though you may draft a player that there's not a specific need for, you're going to need that player in the future at some point. I think it's just a little bit more visible in terms of where the picks need to come from. But I think as a team, as you continue to get a little bit more expensive as a roster, you have to be able to backfill with young talent and develop young talent in order to stay healthy on the cap moving forward. So it is going to be critical as we kind of move into this new space. And I know as a front office, we're up for that challenge and really excited. I feel like we're well-tuned, having a few years to get rolling on this. We have a great process, great system, some really good evaluators on our staff. And that allows us to make some really good decisions.
Next Wednesday is like Christmas for Bears fans, all fans, right? It's fantasy. So if you had to characterize what that they might look like in terms of a one-word answer, I don't know. You got one?
I don't know about one word, but I always feel like it's organized chaos for us. Very organized.
I'm talking about for them.
For them? Yeah, just hold on.
Hold on tight.
Hold on tight.
All right, Ryan.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So there's the thought on Drew Dalman. He wouldn't get into specifics as the reason why. He'll leave that to Drew. But everything we kind of discussed in the opening segment is true. You know, nothing should surprise anybody anymore. And you got to almost, in my opinion, Tom and Jim, look at it as almost like a season-ending injury in the offseason. You know, you got to fill this spot now, and you do get relief on the salary cap, and that's the positive of it.
Sorry, Jeff. I'm glad they know about it now, so far in advance, that they can do their evaluation process of the free agents on an NFL level and look through the college talent. There are 9 guys out there that have quality evaluations from the college level, so you're going to have an opportunity. And I'm glad that he used the word clarity a lot between that relationship between he and Ben Johnson, because I think that's really important when they make sure that they're all on the same page. He referenced the compensation, hopefully, with the Ian Cunningham deal. And then he talked about the relationship that he already has with Jeff King. So all these different details that are in, factor in a GM's job, Ryan seems to have a great approach to every one of them.
I just don't think you can prepare for these things, but it is in the offseason where they can really make plans to address it. But I'm like you, Jeff. It's kind of it's another injury that's really what the life of a GM and a coach is. It's adapting, it's adjusting. Players can go down at any time. Players make decisions at any time. This one is in the offseason where they can prepare for it and plan for it, but it doesn't mean it's going to be better than what it was. It's now it's just another position that has to be addressed that they thought they'd solved. And I think, these type of things pop up all the time. Who knows why Drew ultimately decided to make his decision, and that's right for obviously Ryan Poles not to talk him out of it. Who knows? Ragnow was going to come out of retirement. Maybe Dalman will. And now think about if he makes that decision. How is that going to affect the salary cap if he elects to unretire? So that's going to be another thing they're going to have to adapt and adjust to if that were indeed to happen down the road.
All right. When we come back, we'll dig into more about what's ahead and look at that. What happened in the Combine? Some crazy stuff I also addressed with Ryan there. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer chatting about the Bears. It must be Bears Weekly.
Well, if it's Bears Weekly,
it must be the home of the Bears, ESPN Chicago.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy with Tom Thayer and Jim Miller. Let's dig into the Combine, fellas. I was blown away with the athleticism of all the position groups, number one. Those who knew they were going to be fast ran. Those who probably didn't or maybe didn't have enough time to get ready because the length of the college football season now for many cases. But then the on-field work, some of it was just really impressive. So I don't know if you can label this particular draft as one of being super, super athletic at an elite level, because it certainly looks like it. They broke all these records for different times and jumps that has never happened in the history of the Combine. And I don't know why. We tried to talk about it with Ryan for some clarity, but I don't know. A veteran like you, Tom, and Jim, what do you guys think?
Well, these guys prepare for it. They're visiting trainers since the moment their college season is over, and they're only doing combine type of drills. They're not out there, trying to achieve stratosphere type of strengths in lifting. They're trying to go out there and repetitiously figure out how to do 225 as many times as they can. Like the silliness of them going through that pre-motion of the 40, where there's never how long does an offensive lineman get a chance to get into their stance when they break the huddle? Instantly, but then they're staring at that 40 and they're moving their feet like they're getting ready to do a dance move. Some of the stuff I kind of get annoyed with. However, whatever your team needs are, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
If you have these tight ends that run a 4.40, but you're not on the market for a tight end, you just have to admire the athleticism of what these guys have been doing. I talked to a father of a player that his son is waiting for his pro day, but he's been down in Florida now training for 3.5 months. You just got to make sure that you train the right way for the right things. And then if you open somebody's eyes, maybe that's going to give you an opportunity.
Well, I just think Tom nailed it right there. All these guys are training for it. I mean,
but that's always been the case. Why this year, though, for the numbers?
3.5 months, 7 of 8 position groups tested the best they ever have.
Right.
D linemen, linebackers, defensive backs, tight ends, running backs, wide receivers, offensive linemen, quarterbacks. Do you know out of 331 guys there were only 9 guys that did every drill?
Yeah, I saw
They're
that.
only doing the drills that they test well at.
Yeah.
Right? So factor that in. So it's by no mistake we're seeing the numbers that we're seeing. Okay? Now, if they were to do every drill that they're supposed to do, which they do not, I think it'd be a different story. So I think you go back to what Ryan Pohl said. What is the combine for? It's for the medical in the interviews.
Yeah.
All the guys they didn't talk to at the Senior Bowl, now they got an opportunity to talk to some new faces there at the combine. All the guys that they didn't get medicals on, they get the medicals now. And obviously there's already been some guys that have been red flagged. But to me, it's not shocking that guys test as well as what they do. If I could pick and choose, like you Jeff, if you could do the potato hop, you say, oh, yeah, let's use that score. Good at.
All right, let's look at some of the things that I know caught Tom's eye. So a lot of tall corners, athletic tight ends, physical running backs, fast twitch defensive tackles, and quick linebackers. Sounds like a menu for the Bears.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what that was. Is those are, again, last year going to training camp and standing on the sideline and seeing the length of the corners that they've had in camp. That's with something that we haven't seen in the past. But now when Ryan Poles talks about clarity with Ben and his staff, then you have a better opportunity to know what you're looking at, what you're looking for. What are the requirements that the coaches are asking you for or had desired in every single position out there? And when you look at, what you're focused on, you have an opportunity to identify who some of these guys are. And I think we're all fortunate to have learned a little bit more about the Bears' desires and their roster. And so it gives us an opportunity to know what we're looking at.
Hey, Jim, from my perspective, and let me know what you think about this. From a Bears defensive perspective and knowing Dennis Allen, we touched on this last week, but did you see a lot of Dennis Allen type defensive players at the combine running these drills because he likes the flexibility of being able to mix and match? And I think there's a lot of athletes out there that can play multiple positions on defense, whether you're a linebacker, whether you're a safety, whether you're an inside corner, outside corner, whether you're a safety that can also play linebacker, or a defensive lineman that can play inside or outside. Did you notice that in your opinion?
For edge rushers, big edge rushers, guys like that are a possibility. Safeties, if Brisker is not re-signed, and obviously the need at safety, I think that can be filled with a versatile player. And I think linebacker also, which is shocking because a lot of, like last year, I've already mentioned Schlesinger, the Cleveland Browns. That guy was a walk-on. Typically, not a lot of kids want to go to college and say, oh, yeah, I want to be a premier linebacker. But you've got a lot of safeties converting to linebacker now. They're becoming very productive players in the NFL. And I think that bodes well for Dennis Allen as well, because those are transitional players that are moved to other positions that have fared very well and are productive. So I think the draft shapes up really well for the Bears, their needs, and guys that they can target.
Tom, how about the offensive line, just particularly as the Bears look at what they're going to do at left tackle?
I think Ryan Poles kind of taught us all last year that he thinks he can think outside the box. When you look at Ozzie Trapillo, and he played a majority of his snaps at right tackle in a program like Boston College, that he did believe, and he was convinced or convicted to the point that he thought that Ozzie Trapillo had versatility in his skill level. And so I think if you're really looking for a guy to come in here and, play as quickly as possible at the position they have designated for him, hopefully they can find that guy that's been in the left-handed stance a majority of his upbringing to get him ready more quickly. We're picking at 25. There's a lot more things that could happen in front of you, and it's hard to target 25 than it is top 10 over the last few years.
All things to ponder as we get closer to the draft and free agency next week. All right, one more segment to go, and Tom's Thoughts coming up with Jim Miller and Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or a virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow with Tom Thayer and Jim Miller, the former Bears, collaborating here. And Tom's Thoughts dominate this final segment. Let's see what he's got up his sleeve today, Jim. Number one, I couldn't have been more bored. What, Jim, in the world is Tom thinking here? That's why it's called Tom's Thoughts. What do you got?
This is what I'm thinking. To me, combine, going to the combine, traveling to the combine, shaking hands, meeting guys that you read about or hear about from around the college football landscape. From the moment you get to a combine to the moment you leave, it's an adrenaline-filled weekend. And so I was seeing Dave Remington, and I was seeing Bruce Matthews, John Elway, Dan Marino, all the guys of my 83 class. And that adrenaline runs through you when you go through all those drills that we are talking about. And then it's pure excitement. And then back in my day, Jeff, a pro day was a coach shows up on campus unannounced. He goes to the football office. The football office calls you and says, hey, so-and-so is here, and he wants to work you out. So I'm in the weight room one day at Notre Dame. They come in the weight room, and they said, the offensive line coach from this team is here, and he wants to work you out, and he wants to do it now. It bored me to death because I wasn't there with an announcement that you got to be ready. I'm in the weight room already working out, and then he comes there and he puts me through this 45-minute workout individually, and then kind of gives me a disrespectful remark as he's leaving. And then it happened again a couple days later with another team. So listen, man, if you want to test the adrenaline of these football players, then go and compete in front of your peers. Don't sit there and get some scripted workout period at a pro day and think that that's what you're going to evaluate at the best. And so there's some guys that have to have pro days because they come from smaller colleges. However, to me, pro day was boring, and I loved the combine. I love the adrenaline of the combine.
Jim, you got a story from that on your pro day?
Well, back in the day, like Tom said, you never turned anybody down. These guys today, they don't do anything. Like I said, they pick and choose what workouts they're going to do, and so it puts a lot more pressure on the teams to do their homework and obviously rely on the tape, because you may not get a shuttle time. You may not get a 3-cone drill. You may not get a pro day workout. You may not get a 40 time on a player. But back in the day when somebody showed up at your facility, hey, so-and-so is here to work you out, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go change, and I guess I'm working out for the Bengals today. You just kind of did it. You thought it was like a rite of passage and something you have to do. And now you don't have to do any of it.
That's funny. Scouting budgets are going up. That's Tom's second thought. Dig in, Tom.
Well, Jim brought it up. There's over 320 guys invited to the combine. 189 of them work out. So what are you going to do? You're going to ask these scouts to fly around the country and at your convenience come to your school and work you out, or try to get 5 minutes of a conversation with you when Ryan talks about the importance of the interviews? So now, instead of getting a majority of this scouting out of the way at the combine over that week-long period, now you got 100 and something guys that you got to go chase down and try to get the best out of them. And that means going through the family, going through their agents, going through their NIL deals. I just think it's a super inconvenient for the scouting departments of 32 NFL teams to go down and chase 100 kids that wouldn't work out when they have this period. Don't just go for the swag. Go for the freaking workouts and get them done.
The man has spoken. Jim, a thought, or are you good?
Well, yeah, I just think it puts a lot more pressure on the teams. They got to call up all the universities. Hey, maybe talk to professors. Hey, how's the kid in class? How is, talk to the coaches. How does he respond to coaching? If he doesn't have a 40 time, what did you have on him when he did do a 40 time year? You're doing a lot more homework to find and get the information you're looking for to really validate you're really vouching for a player and making that decision on making him a part of your franchise.
All right, last one. Underwhelmed and overwhelmed.
I'm kind of talking about position specific. I was super underwhelmed at quarterbacks, defensive tackles, and offensive tackles. They really didn't catch me and going, oh my God, there's an Aaron Donald right there, and this guy is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer by the time he gets to the team that chooses them. And then overwhelmed by the tight ends, the running backs, the linebackers, defensive backs, centers, and guards. I thought that they went out there, and there's a lot of talent at those positions specifically, and unique styles of body differences between all of them. And so, yeah, that's kind of the same of all combines. I'm underwhelmed at certain position, and I'm super overwhelmed at certain ones as well.
Yeah, I think we know this is not a good quarterback class. So, even I got my issues with Mendoza, being potentially the first pick overall in the draft. It's a very light class. And I can talk specifically on that. And, yeah, they do a lot of RPO, but they don't do a lot of stuff that translates to the NFL. So there's a lot of development going on. Much like how Green Bay, they drafted Jordan Love, and they sat on him while they had Rodgers. So, yeah, you're somewhat underwhelmed, but yet these guys will be taken. Some will be taken very high, even though they've got very little experience.
All right, boys, that's going to wrap us up. The good news is this time next week we'll have a new roster of Bears players. Some moves to be made for sure, and let's see what they do in free agency. Thanks, boys. The executive producer of the Bears Radio Network is Eric Ostrowski. Thanks to Kendra Smith in the ESPN studios and Bears producers Dan Brilli, Jordan Tredup, and Katie Fox. For Bears general manager Ryan Poles, Tom Thayer, and Jim Miller, I'm Jeff Joniak. This has been Bears Weekly on the radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. Coming up next, Amber and Ian. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Chicago Bears Network presentation of Bears Weekly, hosted by the mayor of Bearsville, Jeff Joniak, and Surfmaster Tom Thayer. Podcasts are available on the Chicago Bears official app, brought to you by Verizon and Apple Podcasts. Bears Weekly has been brought to you by Miller Lite.